dear Professor Mukherjee, dear colleagues from Saurashtra University in Rajkot, India, dear colleagues here at the Constantine the Philosopher University in Nitra, dear students, I can see that more people are in the waiting room, so I'm going just to admit them. Okay, so today we have a very great pleasure to have an invited lecture delivered by Professor Sanjay Mukherjee from the Department of English and Comparative Literary Studies, Saurashtra University. Just to introduce Professor Mukherjee in a few words, he has many years of experience in postgraduate teaching and more than 20 years of research experience. He has edited 4 books and published 32 papers in various journals. He is a 2011 American SUSI Fellow scholar. He attended nice program in University of Kentucky, Louisville. And we had a very great honor to have him with us in 2023. And he gave some lectures at our department also. Some of you might have even met him in person, some of you who are here. So it's my great pleasure to welcome him here today on this online platform. His talk will be about Rabindranath Tagore, one of the most important writers, thinkers of Indian history and culture. Professor Mukherjee, we're very much looking forward to your talk. I would like to encourage my students before you begin that there will be opportunity for questions at the end. So they would be very welcome to ask any questions that they may have. So dear Professor, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Professor Maria, and thank you, the Department of English and American Studies, Constantine the Philosopher University, Nitra, Slovakia, where I have been fortunate to visit in 2023, May, and it was a wonderful time I had with your department, your colleagues, and your students then. So I send my greetings to all of you there, and a very warm good morning. Well, let me immediately begin with, as you rightly mentioned, he is one of our best known literary figures, cultural figures all over the world. But in order to come to him, I would have to take, like what Professor Mehta and Professor Zala also quickly did, that some kind of a beginning has to be mentioned. And in poetry, of course, we have this person called Valmiki, with whom poetry in India begins. This is very interesting, if I may say. Valmiki was actually, his name was Ratnakar, and he was a bandit. He used to loot people, and one day when he was in the forest thinking of looting people, the messenger god, the god of communication, and not only the god of miscommunication, Narad, the Indian god of communication, miscommunication, he happened to pass by, and this robber, Ratnakar, he challenged him, wanted to loot him. What Narad said struck this man. He said, what you are doing is very good, but will your family members take the responsibility of your sins? So he was very confident. He said, yes, why not? I am providing for my family and they will have to. And Narad said, please go back and ask them. And when he did, he was aghast to know that none of his family members actually took up the responsibility to share what he was doing, the sins of his tasks, of his work. This opened his eyes, and he came back and he said, so what would be the penance? And then as a result, he sat in meditation and he sat for so long that it is said that ant hills climbed all over him. Valmik is an ant hill in Sanskrit, and therefore he is called the Valmiki. And thus begins the great epic Ramayana of 24,000 shlokas in 7 cantos. So this is a kind of a very quickly, very brief beginning that I can tell you. Another thing is that he began this epic Ramayana once he was at the river and he saw a hunter kill one of the pair of crane birds who were together, a couple, and very spontaneously, deep regret, anguish, and a curse-like couplet came out of his mouth. It is said that that was the beginning of Sanskrit poetry. So this is how, and then of course the epic Ramayana comes, and this is how poetry begins in India. Then we come to this poet, Kālidāsa, who is supposed to be, again, between 3rd and the 6th century. These dates are not very certain. He's known more as a playwright, but also as a poet, both as a playwright and a poet. And what is interesting about him is that when William Jones and the East India Company, they came to India, and through William Jones made a prose translation of his play Shakuntala. And this translation goes to Europe. Then from there, various Europeans and German, Herder, Schlegel, these people, they come across this translation. From English to German translation takes place. And from German translation, even, Friedrich Schlegel was so impressed that he went to Paris to learn Sanskrit, actually. And then Friedrich Ruckert translated this play Shakuntala from Sanskrit to German, not from English to German, but from Sanskrit to German. And in the process, when Goethe gets a copy of this, Goethe is so elated that he carries on what William Jones started saying, that Kālidāsa is the Shakespeare of India. Now, this is a gross misrepresentation, of course, because you can see that 3rd to 6th century Christian era, and our Shakespeare comes much, much later in the late 16th, 17th century. But this is how things go on. He is often known in the European world as the Indian Shakespeare. Anyway, what Goethe, who was so impressed by Kālidāsa, what Goethe does is to borrow a technique which he puts in his Faust. The technique is a technique in Indian plays called the stringer of the thread or the plot, Sutradhar. And it's a kind of a prefatory narrator who comes before the play, introduces the play, and so on. And Goethe takes this inspiration and does the same thing for his Faust. But I'm putting Kālidāsa as a poet. He is very interestingly, early Kālidāsa wrote a poem on seasons, and this is supposed to be the only Sanskrit poem completely devoted to seasons. Interestingly, and this many even Indians do not know, in this work called Ritu Samhara, he beautifully wrote about 6 seasons. So it is like beginning with summer, then there is a monsoon season in India. And if I can quickly go over to this map of India, the monsoon sets in from the from the south of India sometime around May. Then it goes across, covering the Indian subcontinent, climbs up to the north, and then has a retreating monsoon also. And this entire thing takes 4 months. So a monsoon season, summer, monsoon, autumn, we all know. Then there is he introduced a season. He spoke about a season called the pre-winter. And then, of course, winter and spring. Okay, this is the play which so influenced Abhijnana Shakuntal, or the recognition of Shakuntala. So this is the play that Goethe, Schlegel, Herder, Rückert, all were so very influenced by. I quickly jump to another pan-Indian literary cultural movement, and this is called the Bhakti movement. The Bhakti actually means devotion, or it also can mean adoration or love. So it is said that, again, if you look at it from South India, from south to the west, covering to the north and going to the east, it is also said that this movement in India is not yet over. People say that with the 19th century, with the early 20th century, this movement is over. Or some say with the 17th, 18th century, this movement is over. But some others maintain, for example, Rabindranath Tagore, in his Gitanjali, he continued the Bhakti tradition. So this is a very rich literary tradition. What it did was it liberated songs and poetry from the classical language Sanskrit, and it took it to the vernaculars, various vernaculars, wherever it was. So from South India, it was Tamil to Marathi, Gujarati, Punjabi, Hindi, various dialects of Hindi, Bengali, Oriya. It was like that, this entire Bhakti movement. Kabir is a very important Bhakti poet. I am putting Kabir here because Rabindranath Tagore himself also translated Kabir. He was so influenced by Kabir. Kabir is often considered the chief most Bhakti poet. And there's this very, very interesting, again, a kind of a legend about him. People say that he was 120 years old. He was abandoned by his Hindu mother, adopted by a Muslim weaver, and he blends in the Hindu and the Muslim common philosophy, what is called folk philosophy, because all major Bhakti poets, what they do is that they are not very comfortable with rigid, conventional scriptures, and they want to reduce the distance between the heavenly world, God. God can be formed God, or God can be formless God also. But all the Bhakti poets want to telescope down the distance between the individual devotee and directly God, or whosoever the person worships. What Kabir saw, however, is when he was regarded equally, reverentially by both Hindus and Muslims, he anticipated what will happen after his death. And these are his lines when he says, and there is this critic, Purushottam Agarwal, he cites, he says, Chronicle of the Last Rites foretold. This is Kabir writing. Hindus insist of cremating my body. Muslims resist. How can you? He is after all our Peer. He will receive a burial. Both are out fighting each other. The swan Kabir just looks on. In Indic tradition, the swan is often, the body is a cage and the soul is a swan. That is how it is represented. And when the swan flies away, the body is left behind, the soul goes away, that has a meeting with the other world, with God. This is how he represents it. So he anticipated what will happen. The legend then says that when he was covered up by the white sheet, his body after his death, when people lifted the sheet, it turned out to be there were only flowers, the body was also not there. So the Hindus and the Muslims, they divided the flowers, and some cremated it and some buried it. There are these three things like metaphysical poetry, I would say that only through the involvement of the physical and transcending the physical can you go to the metaphysical. In Bhakti poetry, similarly, there is a section of the eros. The eros is not directly erotic, but also erotic. And of course, the other one is very, very spiritual. So you can find the last 4 lines on this slide is the pang of separation. Separation is a theme that is right from the first epic Ramayana. The pang of separation from one's loved ones has been continuing. It is there in so many, even love poetry. It is there in cinema. And so this is one major theme that keeps on continuing. Destined to end life, burning in separation, neither can I come to you, nor can I call out to you. Either you show up or send me death. I can no longer put up day and night with this burning breath. This is an example of the other kind, the erotic, or the kind where there is a physical love between a lover and the beloved, and the separation between them. Bhakti poetry has this very, very major poet, a woman poet, Mirabai. And look at this quickly, if I can. If Kabir represents the ordinary human being who was found from the streets and he was taken up by a weaver, from a working class, then Mirabai represents the aristocracy who broke the barriers of aristocracy, broke the barriers of marriage and conventions. And this is what she says, that she went out and she bought her God. She got her God, the Dark One, Krishna, a very important Indian god in so many avatars. Even in Ram, you have one of the avatars. So this poem is like, it's true, I went to the market, my friend, I went to the market and bought the Dark One. You claim by night, I claim by day. Actually, I was beating a drum all the time I was buying him. You say I gave too much, I say too little. Actually, I put him on a scale before I bought him. What I paid was my social body, my town body, my family body, and all my inherited jewels. When in India and many parts, many societies, women get married, they get ornaments and jewelry. So my inherited jewels. Mirabai says, the Dark One is my husband now. Be with me when I lie down. You promised me this in an earlier life. So this is Mirabai. This is Mirabai, very, very famous as a woman Bhakti poet. And Tagore and so many other Indian poets in so many other Indian languages. Professor Mehta, Professor Zala mentioned yesterday that there is literature in at least 22 Indian languages. And then there are dialects. Then there are oral or folk literature also in so many other dialects. They don't have the script. So this movement, as I just showed you through the slide, which went all across India, has touched all writers, and it is also majorly taught in Indian literature in many universities in India, even abroad, I would say. And then we come to, with that, I think we should come to Rabindranath Tagore. He is often called a polymath because of contribution in so many diverse fields, poetry, music, philosophy, painting. And the last 40 years of his life, he devoted it to an education that would really connect with humanity, life, and would be a kind of a lifelong learning. And he founded a school, then it became a university, and it was taken over by the government of India. And therefore, he believed in this idea of one world. It was often, it is often said that while he was in India, he spoke about what we can learn from the West. And when he traveled abroad, he always took India along. And he was a restless traveler, 8 times to England, 5 to USA, 3 to Japan, Russia, China, Iran, Argentina, so on and so forth. And if you look at this statistics, in 1913, he becomes the first Asian to be awarded the Nobel Prize. The next Asian to get Nobel Prize happens in 1968. Look at the gap. So this is also one of the reasons why, and of course, this versatility with so many different things. He takes up, for example, painting very late in his life, after 50, his sketches and paintings. And then he goes and does more than 2,000 paintings. So that is, he was till, born in 1861. Till 1905, he was not very well known. Even in Bengal, I would say. Bengal was a large province then. And what happened when the Britishers tried to segregate the Bengal province on the basis of religion, Hindus and Muslims, that is when he came to the socio-political limelight. And he did a lot of, activism, writing, meeting Hindus, meeting Muslims. There is this very interesting thing that there is a festival where the sister ties a thread on the wrist of the brother. So as a kind of a bond as well as a kind of a protection. So he started this tying of the thread of the Hindus and the Muslims. And this bond, he went on to say that this division is being created from outside, and we have been living together for all these years, all these centuries. This is 1905 when he really comes to the national limelight. And in the same month, April, in 1919, there is a massacre that takes place, and actual figures are not available. There's a massacre that takes place in Jallianwala Bagh, a park in Punjab with only one entry. General Dyer and his soldiers, they shoot people who are non-violently, peacefully protesting. And it is said that 400 plus people are killed. And by that time, the British government had given the knighthood to Tagore, and he immediately returns the knighthood and saying that if the knighthood, for example, is in recognition to excellent people, then the giver of this excellence, they're not excellent at all. I don't want this. This is how he immediately returns the knighthood. He is credited with 2 national anthems. Indian national anthem that when our President Murmu Madam visited, you played the national anthem there. And he's also credited with in 1905, he wrote a song. And that song is now the national anthem of Bangladesh. Okay, so when there was this partition, this forced division created by the Britishers, he wrote a song. And that song is now the Bangladeshi national anthem. And interestingly, throughout his life, he remained very, very skeptical about his ability with the English language. He remained very, very diffident about his ability to translate even his own poems. He did a lot, and he wanted that his poem should go out as he wanted that Western literature should come. This is probably the most well-known poem in Gitanjali. It is taught in schools. It is there everywhere. This is in W.B. Yeats's translation, prose translation. This is hymn 35. Since then, there have been poetic translations also, but this is very, very well known all over the world. And where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arm towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason had not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee. This is why I say this Gitanjali is a continuity of bhakti. It has in Gitanjali, there is the spiritual element and there is the erotic also. Where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. So this is probably the most famous hymn from Gitanjali. I have a few others, but we can skip them. This is where I was mentioning to you. He experiments with cubism, geometric sketches, geometric diagram. He also paints, he writes poems, and then he scribbles out what is often today called, the blotted out poetry. He practices that. He has, as I mentioned, more than or nearly 2,500 sketches and paintings. He has more than, the least translatable of his works are his songs. He has more than 2,500 songs. They are called Rabindra Sangeet, or the music or the songs of Tagore. And if I may try to if I may try to play, if this does. Okay.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and never sigh for and sigh, my dear, for and sigh, will take a cup of kindness yet for and sigh. We two have run above the steps and makes the daisies smile. Will take a cup of kindness yet for and sigh. Sigh, my dear, for and sigh. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for.
Okay, so this is actually Robert Burns. So this is Robert Burns in 1788, and Rabindranath Tagore, what he does is he then takes the tune and is this coming through?
Purano দিনের কথা ভুলবি কি রে হায় সে চোখের দেখা প্রাণীর কথা সে কি ভোলা যায় পুরানো সেই দিনের কথা ভুলবি কি রে হায় সে চোখের দেখা প্রাণীর কথা সে কি ভোলা যায় আয় আর একটি বারাই রে সখা প্রাণীর মাঝে আয় মোরা সুখের দুঃখের কথা কব প্রাণ জুড়াবে তাই আয় আর একটি বারাই রে সখা প্রাণীর মাঝে আয় মোরা সুখের দুঃখের কথা কব প্রাণ জুড়াবে তাই ভোরের বেলা ফুল তুলেছি দুলেছি দোলায় বাজিয়ে বাঁশি গান গেয়েছি বকুলের তলায় পুরা ভোরের বেলা ফুল তুলেছি দোলায় বাজিয়ে বাঁশি গান গেয়েছি বকুলের তলায় হায় মাঝে হলো ছাড়া ছাড়ি গেলেম কে কোথায় আবার দেখা যদি হলো সখা প্রাণীর মাঝে
So this is a very modern rendition, the video and the song. So this is, Purano Shei Diner Kotha, taken the tune from Auld Lang Syne and Talk of Olden Times, and he composed 2,232 songs now collected in the anthology in various volumes, Gito Bitan, Garden of Songs. So this is by the way, some are from the influences that he had from the West, but so many others are from folk, so many others are original. He set them to tune. And there was this copyright thing till very recently that you cannot change the tune that has been set. And only very recently now modern instruments and these things are now getting added because that copyright rule now goes away. But in a certain way, you cannot change the lyrics and the songs. That is also equally important. So this video that I showed to you this has been sung by so many famous singers. It has been translated into Hindi. It has been put into Bollywood movies, and this is again a lasting influence of Tagore. He also created what is called kind of a, if I can parallel it with the musical or dance drama. These are images of two of the dance drama where there is a storyline going, and then there is, of course, like it happens in a musical, there is song and there is dance, and where some of the between 1910 and 26 there were very five important plays also. So dance drama as well as plays. So dance drama are above, including important ones like Chandalika, Chitrangada, Shyama, and then also he has plays. where often he directed his own written plays. He sometimes acted in it also. So again, this range of versatility that Tagore has. This is something that the historian of environmental historian Ramchandra Guha, writing in a very recent book, 2024 book, The Origins of Indian Environmentalism, his first chapter is on Tagore and how, when he inherited 7 acres of land from his ancestors, this land was more or less just red soil and very few trees. It was almost barren. And how he set up over the next 2 decades, how he set up this place as an ideal place for meditation, or what he called, Shanti Niketan, or the abode of peace, what he did. And he spent his 1901 to 1941, the last 40 years of his life, he did not actually like to stay in Kolkata, in the city. This is 100 miles away from Kolkata. He would go away here, he would stay here, he would invite people like Mahatma Gandhi here. By the way, these two honorific and adorable titles that, for example, Gandhiji used to address Rabindranath Tagore as the great Guru, Gurudev, the holy Guru, and Rabindranath Tagore made it was not he who had given this honorific, this very adorable title Mahatma to him, but he made it famous all over the world, and certainly first beginning with India. He always used to address Gandhiji as the great soul, the heightened soul, the enlightened soul, Mahatma. And this place, Shanti Niketan, now it is a central university. Many classes are still held outside, out in the nature under the trees. Central University now, and when the first construction started, the constructions happened with locally available, sustainable building materials. And he was very particular. So people say that he did not contribute much to architecture, but I would also say, as some other critics have said, that he had a very, very precise idea how buildings should be, what building materials should be, and where it would be there in the open space, how much of the space should come in. And on these ideas were, of course, he discussed with architects, and they made it accordingly. So I would say that in all the various talents that he had, even this landscaping, designing of spaces, buildings, this also should be included as one. This is something which I've just taken a quote because he's primarily known as a literary person. So what he does about, what he thinks about, form, beauty, so when we come to literature, he says, we find that though it conforms to the rules of grammar, it is yet a thing of joy. It is freedom itself. The beauty of a poem is bound by strict laws, yet it transcends them. The laws are its wings. They do not keep it weighed down. They carry it to freedom. Its form is in law, but its spirit is in beauty. Please note these words. There is the outer body, there is the inner energy, the form, the body, the spirit. Law is the first step towards freedom, and beauty is the complete liberation which stands and shines on the pedestal of law. This is his essay Sadhana, or Realization of Love. This is the quote that I've taken from there. If I now mention, for example, there were other great poets in his time. This is Sri Aurobindo. This is Savitri. This is very, very long and very complexly spiritual poem. Aurobindo borrows the original story from Mahabharata, where it is just in 300 verses, and takes it to 12 books, 49 cantos. He starts writing it over 35 years, and the complete publication gets published only posthumously after his death. So this is also a very good. So there were people, there were other. I would say that in certain ways, like Mehta sir mentioned yesterday, that Bengal was the place of Indian Renaissance, 19th century, late 18th century Renaissance, where it met the West first. So probably it was exposed to the West, and the West was exposed to Bengal first. But there are Indian writers all over who are equally good, even though they have not got the Nobel. They are equally well known. There are, I take when Harold Bloom says, for example, the anxiety of influence. 20th century poets, even in English, certainly in English, because Tagore himself translated and Tagore was translated into English. And if Indian writing in English is so very well known all over the world, with our writers like Amitabh Ghosh, with our writers like Salman Rushdie, Jhumpa Lahiri, and others. Yesterday, A.K. Ramanujan was mentioned by Professor Zala when he was talking about Girish Karnad. Then these are some of the poets of the post-independence Indian English poet. They set out, they unconsciously, they set out not to follow. Of course, the times had also changed by then, but they set out writing poetry with Tagore in mind, and how to set, in that sense, their own individual talent, branching out from the tradition. So these are some of the poets. There is a woman poet, very famous, Kamala Das, A.K. Ramanujan, Nissim Ezekiel, and K.K. Daruwala. Only recently we lost him last year. Jayanta Mahapatra year before that. So these are some of the very important poets English departments teach in India. And this is a very good book, the Rabindranath Tagore by Krishna Datta and Andrew Robinson by St. Martin's Press. I've taken quite a bit of my information and for this talk. From this, there is, of course, what Rabindranath Tagore's socio-political thought, his thoughts on nationalism. Gitanjali, as I said, there was this the W.B. Yeats's edition, and now this edition, which comes up, translated by William Radice, is also there, and it is by Penguin. It is considered a modern classics, and it was first published in 2011. What William Radice tries to do, and I would like to just illustrate that in towards the end of my talk. What Radice tries to do is he actually translates a poem for a poem, not the prose translation of Gitanjali. He tries to keep the poetic rhythm, the poetic line, the poetic stanza, and he changes he goes to the original Bangla Gitanjali. He goes and he follows the chronology of the poems there, hymns, and he brings that out. And every poem in this Gitanjali has a bracket of the more famous one by W.B. Yeats, which is more famous in the sense because it was earlier and it has had several decades of a head start. But this is also now a very, very important Tagore collection, I would say. In between, of course, as I said, socio-political thought written by one of the vice chancellors of the university, Shantiniketan, Chakraborty, Vidyut Chakraborty. We have this on his 150th anniversary, where there is this, the very famous play, The Post Office, from where once this play was cancelled, and then suddenly Tagore said that I will at least sing this song from this play. And I want that this song should then be sung when I am no more. So people should not be sad, people should be, remembering me, but this is something that would be a kind of a tribute to me. Look at the song then. I'm reading, I'm not singing, of course. The ocean of peace lies ahead of me. Sail the boat, O pilot, you are my constant companion now. Take me in your lap. Along our journey to the infinite, the pole star alone will shine. Giver of freedom, set me free. Make your forgiveness and compassion be my eternal resources for the journey. May the mortal ties fall away. May the vast universe hold me in embrace. And with an undaunted heart, may I come to know the great unknown. So this is another very, very deeply spiritual and moving poem we have. There are other issues which probably it will take a lot of time. I have primarily concentrated on Tagore, his writings as a literary person. There are, for example, what he believed is that, if I may put it in this way, that human beings from hunter-gatherer stage, they started forming a society. So the civil society, where people cooperated with each other, and they thought of settling down at one place. And when they settled down on that place, generally by a riverbank, for example, they distributed work. Each person thought that, oh, I'm good at this, so I will take up this work. Later on, what happens is that often people start looking down upon certain work, and then there is this hierarchy created. What Tagore always felt is that a civil society, for example, is far better than the economic aspect of the society, the political aspect of the society. A society of cooperation is what actually is the base, and everything else, if I may use this Marxist terms, in that's a base and superstructure in that sense. He always believed, for example, human creativity, the culture, the inner refinement is always far higher than the politics. He always believed, for example, universal humanism is far better than a radical, constrictive nationalism. And as I said, he placed a lot of emphasis on education. The last 40 years of his life, he devoted completely to that. And where he felt that human beings should be at recognition of nature, where they are, the environment, and of course, this give and take with other societies, would bring some kind of a basic minimum humanity. The human spirit would shine through this. This is, of course, his 1921. In 1921, Shantiniketan had this university called, it started in 1901 as a school with 5 students. By the way, look at this red earth. It was more or less barren like this. And then gradually things came up, landscaping was done. Actually, this was so very different a landscape from his ancestral landscape by the river in Bangladesh. The Ganga river becomes Padma in Bangladesh, and where he had land, and where he had interaction with boatmen there and fishermen there, and this look at this, from almost like scratch, you build up a place, a school with just 5 students, out of which 1 student was Rabindranath's son, Rathindranath. He is an Indian agronomist. By the way, Rabindranath sent his son to study agriculture in the US. He could have sent him to study so many other things. He wanted finally that he and Mahatma Gandhi both had this vision of the self-sufficiency of village, Gram Swarajya, self-sufficiency of village. And they wanted that the tiller of the land, the farmer, should be empowered. So that is one of the students out of 5 is Rathindranath, Rabindranath's son. And it starts with 5 students. Then in 1951, it becomes, by the independent India, a central university. The motto of this university is Yatram Vishwam Bhavati Ekanidam, where the world makes a home in a single nest. The world makes a home in a single nest. In the abode of peace, in Shantiniketan, Vishwa means world. Bharati is another name for our goddess of learning, Saraswati. So it is a compound word, hyphenated compound word, Vishwa Bharati, in the abode of peace, Shantiniketan. And the motto of this university becomes where the world makes a home in a single nest. So I would say finally that Tagore, there are so many of these names. Even if he had not been translated, I mean, himself, he had not translated his works, he would have been known as a person of world literature. There are all these names, from Rumi to the person whom we lost just the other day, Mario Vargas Llosa. And so we have all these names who they never originally wrote in English, and they are famous all over the world. This is how he is now remembered. Although he is like his Andrew Robinson and Krishna Datta often mention, their biography is in the late 90s, and they track it, and they say that like every other great writer, like Tolstoy, for example, or Boccaccio, to a great extent, even we hear, for example, Shakespeare is now no longer taught in many English departments. So his reputation has gone down. But I think people who know literature know him, and people, once they read him, and they certainly then they value him as a great a figure of world literature. I would end with an anecdote. It's an interesting anecdote because it is real, of course. In 1920, a lady writes a letter when Tagore is in England, and says that I would like to know where this poem is that my son wrote, and then he went out to the Great War and he never came back. This lady is Wilfred Owen's mother, Susan Owen. And Wilfred Owen, even before going to the war, he was so taken by these lines from Gitanjali that he had mentioned it in one of his notebooks. And that particular hymn number 96 in Yeats's edition and 7 in this new edition by William Radice, I will end with reading this short hymn, which goes like this. Let me pronounce these words the day I go. Nothing compares with what I have seen, with what I have come to know. The 100-petaled lotus that upon this sea of light blooms, I have drunk its nectar. Let me to everyone speak of this good fortune on the day I go. This world of forms in which I have played allows what has no form to show. its beauty. With my eyes, I have witnessed this. That which can't be touched has touched and hugged the whole of my body. Thus, if all of this must end, then let it go. These are the words which on the day I leave, I want you all to know. This was Wilfred Owen's famous poem from Rabindranath Tagore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for this wonderful lecture and presentation. It was very, very interesting, very insightful. I really love the way how you introduced Tagore to us and how you contextualized his life and his work. He seems to be really an inspiring personality. So I would like to open now space for some questions. So please, those of you who would like to ask something, you can ask either directly or you can type your question in the chat. Okay, we have a question in the chat from Emmanuel, and the question is about the school built for originally for 5 students. Was the curriculum taught in a Socratic way, via discussion with the teacher, or in a more general way we utilize today? Also, were there other teachers at the time?
Okay, very nice. Yeah, as I said, when the school began, it had 5 students only. And it had 3 teachers, and then quickly it became 5. But interesting thing is, one of the teachers, he addressed for the first time Rabindranath Tagore as Gurudev, but he was a strict disciplinarian. And Rabindranath Tagore said, I don't want disciplines in my school. I don't want that strict regimentation in my school. So what were the things taught there? A lot of humanities, art, and there was no syllabus as such. Initially, there was no timetable as such. As I mentioned, a lot of learning used to happen out under the trees. So yes, music, dance, poetry, literature, history of England, history of the West. He was not against science. There's a very interesting dialogue between, and it is on the web, there's a very interesting dialogue between Tagore and Einstein, and that is also there. So he was not against science. He actually felt that a lot of superstitions and the throwing away of the ossified, fossilized rituals can go away with rationality. So there was this. But what I'm trying to say is the first 10 years, 2 things happened. One is it was not really systematic as we know that it begins at this time. There are 4 lectures or 3 periods, or then there is a break. And so there was a break, of course, and people used to, in the school, it was strictly vegetarian. And those 5 young students, they used to raid the kitchen, adjacent kitchen of Rabindranath Tagore's wife, and she used to cook food for them. So this was the second thing was, and he has mentioned this time and time again, where to get the funds from for the school. He pawned his wife's ornaments. He sold off, he came from a landed family. He came from aristocratic family, but he sold off so many of his assets in order to fund this school. And he took the help of, he used to bring people like Mahatma Gandhi so that there would be visibility, and then there would be donations also. He used to take trips. As I mentioned, he used to go all around the world, and he used to say, I go all around the world with a begging bowl, and I collect money for my school. So that was, how did he influence the generation of writers following him? Well, he has this blend of the rural and the urban, the Indian spirituality and the Western rationality. Often we find when we use modern poets, I showed you some modern poets, modern Indian English poets at least, all of them are city-based poets. And when they talk about, A.K. Ramanujan has a very famous poem called A River, for example. And he says, the river becomes a river only once a year when it floods. And it carries away 2 people, 2 cows, and that is how the river is. I mean, that. As against that, if you read the river poems of Tagore, there is from the natural to the material to the spiritual, the continuity, the fluidity of it, and he was he was a believer of the rhythm and the rhyme in poetry. Many people then, for example, I'm reminded of when T.S. Eliot says, vers libre is not liberation from verse. People attempt vers libre. Okay, but it is not. You must have the idea of what a verse is. So, as I said, many other writers after him wanted to get out of his shadow. The way he wrote, the themes he wrote about, that is how he influenced it. Is it possible to preserve the same emotions and messages in a poem when translating it? Okay. This is a problem of translation. As I said, right from Kālidāsa, there are prose translations of Indian languages, Indian classical languages, and there are good attempts of translations which had attempted to keep closer, approximately. In translation, we have the word approximation. So approximately closer to the rhythm, the cadence, the tonality of poetry as such. So it is difficult, but there are translators. They are making it possible. Booker now has prizes for translators also. I think that is given.
There is another question in the chat.
As you have mentioned that there are at least 22 languages in India and a number of different dialects. My question is, when a poet writes a poem in their own dialect, will people from other parts of India be able to understand it? And what does it depend on? By this, I mean, for example, geographical location or the author or the reader. Very good. India has a 3-language formula all over India. There are clusters of languages. For example, where I am right now for many, many years in Gujarat, Gujarati is, of course, a language. Hindi is a language coming through this entire Bollywood cinema, Bombay cinema, and the neighboring state of Gujarat, Maharashtra, the bordering areas. People will switch over from Marathi to Gujarati. People will switch over from Rajasthani to Gujarati, Marwadi to Gujarati. People will switch over from Chhattisgarhi to Gujarati. So there are, that is why India has a 3-language formula. It is said that everyone in India at least follows 3 languages. There are a lot of people who know basic English also. Even the 3-wheeler drivers, auto rickshaw people also know basic English. So that is another language. So yes, location matters, education, literacy matters, and love for knowing the other literature also matters. Okay, my God, what's your favorite poem from Tagore, or do some of his ideas present in his work apply to your life as well? Well, this will take a lot of time. I mean, my favorite poem of Tagore is, I don't know. I have quite a few which are close to favorite. I do believe that India is so varied in that sense. As I said, 22 languages, so many cultures, so many belief within, say, the Hindu system, and within the Hindu system, so many different sects and beliefs. So we are really kind of, and India has been historically a very tolerant country. And this is what we can learn from Tagore. And to that extent, I think I am indebted to these qualities, yes.
Are there more questions? In the meantime, while you're thinking, we still have a few minutes, so I'll just have two observations on the talk. The first one is that I really enjoyed that you recited poetry aloud, which for me is always, I read in several books that you understand a poem fully only if you read it aloud, and that reading aloud, if the person who recites the text understands it fully, that actually enables the listeners also to understand it. So there is this magical communication in recitation that takes place. So thank you that we could experience this. And then the way how you mentioned that Tagore used the words of Burns, that he modified actually the poem, the original.
Burns.
For me, it's a very nice piece of evidence how art is a living entity, how it transforms. Even Burns took the poem from somewhere else. I mean, it was originally a folk song or something.
Folk song, correct, yeah.
Yeah. So he put something from himself into what had originally been created by someone else, by some anonymous maybe person. And then this piece is again very beautifully transformed by Tagore. And what we could see, that was not Tagore, that was again very modern interpretation. So this is an excellent piece of evidence how art is a living entity, how it
crosses over boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Boundaries of the mind, geographical boundaries. It crosses over boundaries of all kinds.
Yeah. We have a question in the chat, Daria.
Are there people in India who know all these 22 dialects, and how many of them? Oh my God. There are people in India who know 7 to 8 languages. This I know. I have met people who know 5 languages. I have met myself. I have read about people who know 7 to 8 languages. There was a Prime Minister of India who used to know 7 to 8 languages. He used to read, write. P.V. Narasimha Rao. This Prime Minister of India used to know 7 to 8 languages. So yes, there are people who are quite competent with reading, writing, speaking, listening, all the LSRW skills of multiple languages. Yes, thank you.
More questions? Sanjay, what about young people and Tagore? Do they read him? Do they appreciate him? Is he modified somehow by their reception? How is it?
You see, Bengal is a fulcrum. That university is a fulcrum from where, young minds. There are festivals every year commemorating Tagore, commemorating the Tagore family, commemorating art by other Bengal school of painters. So and then so in fine arts there is the Bengal School of Painter, and then there is the Baroda School of Fine Art, the Bombay School of Fine Arts, for example. Yes, but this is a very good question. I mean, I hope that I don't claim, first of all, that I'm a Tagore expert. I myself started very late into reading Tagore. Because sometimes, it is in every Bengali person's collective unconscious, Tagore is. So although I have been away from Bengal, whenever I go to Bengal, Tagore is always there in some way or the other. So then you don't like to seriously pick up Tagore because you think, oh, this is Tagore, And then when you start knowing him, and then you start, okay, W.B. Yeats was interested about him, Ezra Pound was interested about him. When you start knowing these information, then you say, you stupid fellow, you should also know a little bit about him. And that is how my interest began. I think there are a sizable number of people, young scholars also. In 2019, I attended a conference on Tagore at Shantiniketan, and there were people from all over India who had come, and not necessarily knowing Bengali, but they have read Tagore in Hindi, in English, in Marathi, in Gujarati, and they were there. So I think, yeah, Tagore is still quite well known. And with the young also.
Thank you. Are there more questions? I can not see any more in the chat. And as I'm checking time, we are getting to the end of our today's.
I was quite conscious of time, I think, this time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. So I would like to thank you, Professor Mukherjee, for your wonderful, very inspiring talk. I would like to thank to all your colleagues, also those who participated yesterday. I'm glad that we managed again this series of lectures. It's very inspiring, I think, for both parts, for both sides. So I do hope that we keep the tradition.
Yeah, that is how I would like to end. We must keep this ongoing. And even on our campus, our Vice Chancellor there's a new Vice Chancellor from this January who has taken note of it. Our other university officials have taken note of it. Let us keep going on with this collaboration, this memorandum of understanding. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, students, for your questions.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a nice rest of the day. Goodbye.
Yeah, same for you. Bye-bye. Bye.